It's Jenny. I'm back with you. Sorry I've been gone for so long. I know I've had a lot of comments on my videos, and thank you everybody for watching. Just been a busy couple of years for me. Both of my kids are graduated and off to college, and then my husband and I decided to move south, so we moved from Montana down to Arizona, and there's just been a lot of stuff going on in the family. But I'm finally all set back up in my sewing room, a little bit crammed, but I'm ready to start sewing and making some more videos for you. So where I'd like to start off is my very last video that I did was how to start and the 3 steps that you need to do to paper piece, which is the trim, sew, and press. And I showed you how to do that with just one block. And that was the Desert Sky pattern. Oop, backwards. The Desert Sky pattern. And so I dug out my pattern and dusted it off, and I'd like to show you how to chain piece, which was what the video I told you was coming next. So we're going to show you how to chain piece, and then I'd like to continue with finishing the Desert Sky. So I'm going to show you how to assemble the units. So we'll sew this curved seam here, and then I'll show you how to actually lay out the quilt and assemble it and go over some tips and tricks on that. And then after that, then we'll go in, maybe make another quilt. And so if you've been watching my series and there's a particular quilt that you might like to see me do a video about, drop a comment below and let me know what type of quilt or what type of problems you've been having with your Quitworx or paper piecing, and I'll see if I can make a video on that. I can't do anything that's technique of the month. I'm no longer a certified Quitworx instructor just because of everything that was going on, and it was tough to kind of stay up with all the requirements. But I still can teach Quitworx patterns, just not technique of the month. So hopefully we can get some of your quilts made and help you out, assisting you in all the different tips and tricks that I know. And we'll make the Desert Sky quilt, and then hopefully you can follow me along with some other quilts. Let's get into showing you how to chain piece the Desert Sky, and this is a technique that you can use on any Quitworx pattern. So let's get to it. Okay, so today guys, we're going to show you how to chain piece and make this block right here. This is the S block, or unit S, of the Desert Sky. Now in the last video we showed you how to start section 1 right here, section 1, and we glued that on, and we trimmed, cut, and press, and put on actually section 2 and section 3. So I went ahead and finished these blocks off camera, but I want to show you how to chain piece today so you can do all 9 blocks all at the same time, so you're not doing just one block at a time. And then these pieces here, these are the backgrounds for the Desert Sky, and we'll show how to do this curved seam in a future video. We're going to focus on the chain piecing of Unit S for the Desert Sky Quiltworx quilt. So here I have bag 1, and we've already done 9 of the 18 units on Unit S. So we're going to pull out the other 9, and right now we don't really need these background pieces, so we're going to set those aside. So in the last video I showed you how to start paper piecing, and actually, it's been a while, and I put this all away in a bag. And if you remember, I told you how important it was to number your pieces in case you stopped and came back to your project at a later date, or if they fell on the ground, you could put them all back in order. So here's what I have. I've pulled them out of the bag, and they're kind of out of order. So let's get our pieces kind of stacked back again. We know that the last section is section 9. Then we're going to have a spike, and then we have section 7, and then another spike, and section 5, and then another spike. Okay, so those are our pieces ready to chain piece, and we have all 9 pieces of fabric here on all of these piles. They're all the same, all in the same order. So now we need to get our pieces that we've already kind of worked on at a put these back in order. Okay. So normally when we're getting ready to chain piece, we would have, we're at the trim part, so we've already folded over and we've trimmed all of these pieces down to the 1/4 inch. And I'll go over it again on the next pieces, but I just wanted to kind of let everybody know that this is what happens sometimes when you put projects away for a while. So I need to match the pieces back up. So, and I'm going just by what the first spike is. So this is going to be for this piece here. And since we are doing, I'm going to go ahead and lay them out and get them ready for chain piecing. Okay, I moved the pattern out of the way. And let's get these pieces laid down and ready to start chain piecing. So I'm just going to flip these over this way so I know how to lay them down. And we've got, so if you remember, just a refresher, when you have a light fabric that's underneath a dark, we want to line those edges up, but we also want to make sure that we have just a little bit, a 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch sticking out, so we don't get any shadowing going on. And also, if you want to take a look, if you can see underneath the paper, there's the line of the spike is right here, and that's what this piece of fabric is going to be. So we want to make sure that we've covered, I mean, this spike is long enough that it actually covers the top to the bottom of the actual piece of paper. So I think we've got plenty. So the next piece is going to be this fabric here. And when we chain piece, we just want to lay these kind of on top of each other. We're not lining them up in any particular way other than obviously in order, but we're just kind of laying them on top of each other so we can grab them and sew them. So right now we're just kind of getting everything back in order. And then this is a light fabric against a dark, so we're going to make sure that we have a little bit sticking out. All right, so now that we have them all laid out, we are going to chain piece, and there's a couple of different ways that you can do this. Some people have sewing machines that don't have an automatic cutter on it. So when you chain piece, just like if you would a regular quilt block, like if you were sewing 4 patches or anything like that together, you would just sew one piece, leave it attached, lift up your presser foot, and keep sewing. And then when you're done, then you can cut the string in between all the blocks. With what I'm going to show you how to do, because I have a automatic cutter on my sewing machine, I'm going to cut my threads between each piece, and it's basically comes down to personal preference. Time-wise, it's probably about the same amount of time. Some people say it's faster to do it one way or the other, but it really honestly comes down to your own personal preference and then again, what machine functions you have. So I'm going to pick up my piece, take it over to the sewing machine, and I have to readjust my camera, and I'll meet you back. Okay, here we are at the sewing machine, and I have made sure that my machine is set up with the shorter stitch length. I've got my needle is at the center so I can follow the line. I'm not worried about making sure that I have a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm going to get my machine ready. I've got the correct thread and the correct needle size. If you wanted to know more about how to set up your machine, you can check out the video that I've linked a tab up for on how to set up your sewing machine to get ready to paper piece. Okay, so here we are at the machine. We're going to be sewing on line 3. So I'm getting ready here. So just again, sewing on line 3. It's not a car race, just go slow as you are comfortable to keep it on the line. I'm just going to sew right off. Now, if you had a machine that did not have an automatic cutter, you would just lift up your needle and slide it forward and bring your next piece over. Just like you would a normal quilt block, and just continue chain piecing all of your pieces together. Now here, because I have the automatic cutter, I'm going to go ahead and cut my block. Oops, my other... Oh. Well, here's something. I've been sewing and my bobbin is empty, so I guess I didn't do a thorough check on my sewing machine. Let me re-thread the bobbin and I will be right back. Okay, I have a full bobbin now, and my first block, if you see right here where the thread ended, that's where my bobbin ran out. So this is a good opportunity to show if that happens, then we're just going to start a couple stitches before where the thread ran out. Let's make sure that we're on the line. Okay, so let's go back to our next piece. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and continue sewing all of these, and I'm going to, like I said, I like to do the automatic cut in between each piece, and then I stack them on top of each other so I can keep them in order. So I'm going to continue sewing, and I will meet you back when we're all done. And then, of course, you know, the next step after sewing in the trim, sew, press routine is to iron. So I'll show you what the pieces all look like when I'm done sewing, and then we'll go to the next step, which is the pressing. Okay, all of my pieces are sewn, and I started with the pink one. If you can see, there's the thread that, or the bobbin thread, and this is my last piece, which if we look at the numbers is number 10. That should be, oh, so this one should be on the bottom. So we got 10, 11, 12, okay. Now we're going to take these over to the ironing mat and we're going to press them. Okay, so now that I've got the pile here, I'm going to turn them upside down and put them back in the correct numerical order. And I'm just going to grab one at a time. And just like I've showed before, we want to do a nice finger press. Get that all nice and flat. And then we're just going to do the iron and hold that for a count of 1, 2, 3. And then I keep these in order, so I'm going to set this off to the side, so that will be the bottom one. And we're just going to keep on going. Nice finger press. One, two, three. Okay, that's all of the pieces. We've ironed them all and I've kept them in order. So 18 is on top and 10 is on the bottom. We're gonna try our best, or we have to keep our pieces in order. Now we're going to repeat, basically wash, rinse, repeat. So we're gonna trim, sew, press, and keep doing this with each section all along the way. So I'll show you, I'll go through the next section and we'll repeat the process and show you how I do the chain piecing. Okay, here we are back at the cutting board and we're getting ready to trim. And now we're going to flip them over so we can see the top part. And we're going to be trimming here on line 4 for the next piece, which is section 5. Yep, section 5. So in my previous video, someone had asked me if you could see these, so you can pause and read these if you want. This is just kind of my little step-by-step process of paper piecing. Okay, so let's get to trimming on line 4. Okay, so now when we're done trimming, I like to just kind of pile them up. I'll set them kind of off to the side here so you can see. We'll grab our next piece. Trim on line 4. I just kind of stack them up on top of each other, just like that. Okay, I'm going to keep trimming these and I'll meet you back when we're all done with the whole stack. Okay, here we are with all of the pieces trimmed, and now the next step is to line up the next section. And the next section is going to be section 5 right here. So if we look, you can kind of see, if I can hold that up, you see that line right there? That's the section right here that we need to cover with the piece of fabric underneath. And my sew line is facing away from me, so I'm going to take that off. And one thing that we want to confirm, just to make sure, is that the pieces match up. So I actually have these all reversed, so I'm going to quickly go through and reverse these. Sometimes that happens when I started today, because I hadn't been on my project for a while. They were all in reverse order. So here we are. We should be back to where we're at. So make sure that this piece matches. That is the correct fabric. So let's lay our piece down. And want to make sure. Now this one doesn't matter about the dark or the light because the dark is on the bottom. So I'm just going to line the fabrics up. Want to make sure this is where this paper's folded back. This is the top of where that fabric should be on the bottom, which I'm going to bring that forward just a little bit. So about right there. This is my point of my triangle, and I can see that my extra fabric is all the way down here. So I'm going to kind of use that in my mind as where, when I lay all these rest of these fabrics down, of how to line up my block. So if we lay this piece down, and line that up about the same. Here's the tip of my triangle. There we go. Next piece. And then we're just going to go through the line and lay these all down and get them lined up and ready to sew for our next step. So, and as I go along, I'm just kind of just verifying, make sure that I'm lining up with the correct fabric, because we don't want to sew the wrong fabric onto the wrong piece. Then that creates a whole nother bag of worms that we have to fix all the mistakes. Okay, last piece. So now we're going to do the sewing, and I will move my camera over to the sewing machine. Okay, here we are back at the sewing machine, and we're just going to rinse and repeat. And we're just going to sew on the line, chain piecing each piece as we go. We're on line 4 here. Remember to sew a couple stitches past next piece here. Remember to sew a couple stitches past here, because when we come and trim on line 5 and we sew all the way out to here, we'll trim off all those threads when we go and do our next iteration of trimming. Okay, that's all of the pieces sewn. I'm going to flip them over, and then we're going to take them over and do the press of the trim sew press. Okay, here we are. We're going to get ready to do the press. Nice finger press. Switch my iron around so it's on my right hand. I'm just going to do one right after the other. The most important thing is just to try to keep your pieces in order. If you're doing all of your blocks the same color, well then obviously it's a lot easier. But when you're doing multiple color blocks like this, you just have to pay attention and double check that you're putting the right color fabric down when you're placing your fabrics, and just pay attention. Spend a little extra 2 seconds checking your color. I've done one time where I sewed all of my blocks. I think I was doing chain piecing of 18. I sewed 18 pieces, all on were the wrong color. So that's why I take an extra minute and just double check when you're kind of on automated mode and you're placing pieces and sewing and trying to get a project done. But in my case, I wasn't paying attention. I ended up taking way longer because then I had to take the pieces off. Oops. Had to take the pieces off and re-sew them. So just take that extra couple seconds and double check that all your units are in order by just doing that, checking the number. And then when you go to place the fabric, just do another quick, doesn't take longer than a couple seconds just to check that you've got the right color piece of fabric down. And so this is basically how you chain piece. You do the same process of the trim, sew, and press, except you do it, 9 different times or however many blocks you have. This process works on any of the paper piecing blocks that Judy has in her on any of the patterns that Judy has, they are all designed for they are all designed to be chain pieced. They're obviously all paper piecing, but chain piecing is the same whether you're doing a Desert Sky or you're doing a block of the month, or you're doing, you know, if you're doing with strip sets, like on a prismatic star or anything like that, those are all designed to be chain piece. So the process is the same. Next, so we've done the trim, sew, press on all of these. So I'm gonna flip these over, and then we're gonna start again with line 5. So the process is the same. Trim, sew, press, you just do it however many times that of blocks that you have. So in this case I have 9, so I do that 9 times. But you might have 12, you might have 18. You might want to tackle a bunch of blocks at the same time and do 20 or 30 blocks at the same time. But the process is the same. You trim, you sew, you press, and then you also have to take that extra couple seconds just to verify that you are, especially in a multicolor like the Desert Sky, and you'll find that in a lot of the different patterns that Judy has, is to make sure that you match up the right color with the block that you're placing the fabric on. So that, in a nutshell, is chain piecing. So I hope that helps, and get working on your project. Chain piece them and you'll get them done a lot faster than just doing one piece at a time. Thanks for watching, and if this was helpful, make sure you hit that thumbs up and subscribe for future videos. The next step in this series of the Desert Sky will finish our Unit S blocks. So go ahead and sew bag 1 and bag 2, get all of your blocks done. Then come back in the next video, which I'll be releasing next week, will be the curved piecing of sewing the background onto our Unit S's when they're all complete.